Welcome back to the second episode of Study Skills. Basically, today I'll be demonstrating or telling you something about the different types of learning styles. So, there are different types of learning styles that exist basically, guys. For example, some people would like to study by just reading out things or highlighting things. Some people use mind maps or flashcards in order to study. So it makes it easier for them to remember or memorize the content. Some people use hand movements, sensations in order to study. And some people study with the group because they are group people, social, interpersonal people. So they love studying and discussing with their group and study. Because questioning and answering and discussing with the groups helps them in order to remember the facts and whatever content they have to study. First is the verbal learners. The verbal learners basically use speaking and writing in order to remember the content or memorize the content, which is essential. So basically they speak out, they verbally read out the content and write down notes. Lot of notes they write down, they keep highlighting stuff so that they memorize it better. So these are one type of learners, verbal learners. Second is oral or auditory learners. These type of learners use auditory aids. Basically they learn from listening, hearing a lot, and they may record some audio tapes or something in which they can record their own content in their own voice and listen to it again and again, repeat it again, so that the content gets fixed, the content gets imprinted in their mind, engraved in their mind, so that they can reproduce it better in the exam. Third type of people are visual or spatial learners. They basically make use of visual or space. That is, they use colors, pictures, mind maps, diagrams, symbols, flashcards, etc. in order to remember or reproduce the material. For example, if you want to revise some kind of principles. So basically, if you have bold points which are there in the textbook, you can just write the first letter of each bold main point, and then you can form an acronym or mnemonic of it, and then you can by heart that material, just the mnemonic basically, and you can then expand those mnemonics according to the content which is given. And in this way you can remember it better. Even drawing diagrams or symbols also helps a lot to reproduce information, because they are a kind of visual, they capture your visual attention, and your brain captures visual symbols more better as compared to just reading out. And next we come to interpersonal or social learners. As I said, they learn with the group. They love discussing with the group the facts and contents. They love solving each other's problems, and they discuss a lot and study well in the group. So they are group people. Others prefer studying alone. Those are solitary or intrapersonal learners. They believe in studying alone against role playing, which is in group studying or which is in interpersonal studying. So these people prefer a quiet place, ideal place, they study alone, they love to highlight and make pointers and learn things on their own and try to solve their problems on their own and have your own question bank, reference books, etc. So they love studying alone. Next is kinesthetic or physical learners. Basically it comes from means physical, basically the use of your hand movements, the use of sensations, the use of physical ailments basically in order to study. So these tend to, some of the hand movements or some of the gestures may help you remember some sort of things, I mean in the information from the textbook very easily. So these are some kind of learning styles which people tend to use. So first and foremost important thing is importantly knowing your dominant learning style from these. So when you learn about these learning styles, which style suits you, according to it, you can choose a specific learning style and study the material, because there is also an art in studying the study material. So that is also an art. So basically when you learn about it and use that art which is very preferable or very suitable for you to study and remember things, you can reproduce your material in the exams quite better. And now there is an acronym called as the Aspire Study System, ASPIRE. So basically where A stands for approach, your positive approach is something just like in the murder technique, your mood is very important. Positive moods, having a positive approach towards studying, that why you are studying these things, why are you giving the exams, why are you performing, why do you want to perform well in the exams. These things basically are very important. The approach, the way in which you study is basically very important. Just mugging up and just reading for the sake of reading and giving the exams is not sufficient. Why are you studying? Why are you given that education basically? Why are you given that knowledge basically? In order to implement in the future, right? So that approach is very essential, what you should have. Second is select area. Select a chunk of material to study. Don't pile up all these studies all together. Do it one by one, chunk by chunk, because it will lead to overloading if you clumsily pile up all the material and try to study all the material all at once. So that's the reason it is very essential, guys, that you study a chunk of material each day. You have to prepare one content at a time, and each day you have to revise the original content, old content, so that you cannot forget the old content as well. So that is why it is essential to pay attention basically on certain amount of information which at a time, so that you can recall it during the exams very easily. Reading material that you can digest and finish in a certain period of time. So selected area of study is very essential. Third is putting together. P is for putting together what you have already read by summarizing what you have understood from the books and the materials or the contents that you have with you. So basically putting together, summarizing, skimming, as I said, is very important, guys. Then we come to inspect, investigate and inquire. So if you have any questions or doubts regarding the content in the study material, definitely approach your teacher or refer to your reference books, internet sources, discuss with your friends, with your social groups as to what is the answer to that question. If you're not getting any answer, don't just leave it, and make sure to solve all your doubts, so that on the day of exam, if you get the same question, you don't have to worry about answering that question. You can easily answer that question. So definitely get your doubts sorted first before the exam, quite earlier before the exam. So learn to inquire, investigate and explore basically, because that is something which is not just restricted to your studies, but also to your own knowledge and your own satisfaction that yes, you have learned something which will be implemented and useful in the future, right? And then lastly we come to E, evaluate, examine and explore. As I said, don't just restrict your studies to whatever you have learned from the textbook. Expand it. If you have that information, if you have some reference resources and reference books, you can refer to those books as well, and you can get more information about the particular content. You can inquire to your teachers, you can explore, you can ask for more knowledge about that particular topic, right? So always this will help you in upgrading your grades and your performance as well. It will not just help you in performing better in the exams, guys, but also in your future, because this will tend to develop kind of attitude of curiosity and learning basically new things and grasping new things and implementing them better in your own fields. Whenever you're studying, guys, organization and planning is utmost importance, because without that you cannot study anything properly. Like for example, if you just take a book today and you just start reading randomly, you may read and up to one page, you may complete 1 page, 2 pages, but you may not proceed beyond that. So that's the reason planning is very essential, guys. Today I have to complete one entire chapter, so I have to complete one entire chapter, and there should be a specific time period allotted to complete that entire chapter, and today itself, tomorrow never comes, right? So basically there are few pointers in the ways in which you should study. Create a study guide by topic, formulate questions and problems, and write complete answers, and create your own quiz basically. So you have to frame your own questions and answer to those, and those questions should be like the most which are likely to come in the exam, not very easy ones or not very difficult ones which are not bound to come in the exams. So they should be they should be suitable, which will definitely come in the exam. So expected questions should be given the most priority, and thereon you can go to the other content which is less important. Become a teacher. Say the information in your own words as if you are the instructor and teaching the concepts to the class. So whenever after you have absorbed that information, extracted that information, second thing is recall, obviously. So how will you recall things? Just try to narrate things. After you absorb things, just ask a question to yourself verbally and answer to it verbally. Like whatever you have absorbed, try to recall it and try to frame it in an answer, proper answer, and try to answer it verbally, so that you can you'll get to know that how much information you have absorbed and how much is forgotten, so that you can revise it again and again. And this procedure keeps on repeating until you master all of your studies very well. Then derive examples that relate to your own experience. See guys, association is very important technique. When you associate things, that yes, for example, law of satiety. For example, you want to satisfy your hunger. So how much mangoes you will eat. So number of mangoes that you eat, how much mangoes you eat and feel satisfied. So that is the law of satiety basically. Until you get satisfied, you'll keep consuming that item, right? So the diminishing value, the diminishing, the more amount of mangoes you eat, you get more satisfied and less you want to eat more. So that is basically an example which I'm giving. So you have to relate these things to the reality, basically to real life. Then create concept maps or diagrams that explain the material. Obviously, visual learners basically will use this technique. It will help a lot. You can also make flashcards as well as revision materials at the final moment. Develop symbols that represent concepts. And for non-technical classes like English, history, etc., figure out the big ideas so you can explain, contrast and re-evaluate them. For technical classes, work the problems and explain the steps and why they work. For example, your maths. It's only possible to master it by practice. Then study in terms of question, evidence and conclusion. What is the question posed by the author? What is the evidence that they present? What is the conclusion? So this was about today's study skill session. Hope you like it and hope you are finding it useful. And if you like it, please do share it with your friends and your other students as well who find the information useful. Thank you so much.